everyone. Welcome all to our informal session today. Okay, first of all, we're going to be starting off with a city council briefing on the Victus study update by Taylor Adams. Welcome, Taylor.
Thank you, Mayor. Good afternoon, everyone. Once more, I guess. Here we go. All right. Let me get to the right one. Actions. All right. Sorry, two briefings here. It looks like I'm back to back here, Mayor, so we want to start with the right. So good afternoon, Mayor and Vice Mayor, Council. We are happy to be here in front of you today to offer an update to some plans that the community, I think, in particular our resort stakeholders, have been looking at for some time now. And so this is an update on, call it a facility study. So some in the community have hoped that this was going to be a study that talked about I want to start by saying many were hoping this was a study that would talk about location and where we should go next, what we should put. That's not really what we're talking about here. What we're talking about is an update to an overview of our market in the sports tourism standpoint from our existing facilities, but also from a use standpoint to help us identify what it is that we are missing. And so, diving in here, you can see in the fall of 2022, our Convention and Visitors Bureau contracted with Victus. The goal was to update the previous study. When did that study happen? That study happened around the time that we were considering what is now our sports center. So important to note that 2016 is what Nancy just told me. We commissioned the Victus study to give us an idea of what should be next. That study led to our sports center, which has been a huge success in our community. And so Victus conducted stakeholder interviews representing 11 organizations and focus groups with 13 additional organizations. They identified a few things that we want to mention to you. So first, and you're going to see 6 items here around potential sports facility or use opportunities in our community. First, action sports. Now, I'm not going to read all this to you, and especially since the next briefing is about an action sports series. I'll let you all look at this, and I'll just quickly say, just this last weekend, we had the first of our 3 years, at least and we hope much more than 3 years of Jackalope, an action sports festival that was by every measure an incredible success for our organization. Many of you would have seen the press and the media coverage around Tony Hawk on Saturday and having a vert ramp back on the beach and what that meant to the community, the action sports community. But we'll talk more about that in just a moment. But interestingly enough, and I won't deny, we had already written this presentation before Jackalope, but it's important to note, independent of us, the team at Victus came up on their own through talking to our community, looking at what we're missing, to sort of say that our number one opportunity was in action sports. And why is it? Well, at our core, it's authentic to who we are. We know that we have the East Coast Surf Championship that just had their 60th anniversary, same age as our city. It's the longest running surf competition in the world. Tony Hawk, going back to the 1980s, was competing and skating at the vert ramp at Mount Trashmore. If you look, surf and skate and BMX and all manner of other action sports are just sort of authentic to who Virginia Beach is. And so we find in the space of action sports, particularly in tourism inducement, that the best us is the most authentic us. And so action sports just true to who we are. Secondarily, they mentioned an outdoor baseball complex with at least 8 fields. Why is that? Well, we have the Princeton Athletic Complex that has softball today, but we don't have a tournament baseball facility within the community that could be utilized for tourism. And if you look north and south of us, you'll find most communities have added this infrastructure and it's performing. Victus looked at the number at the give or take 11,000 hotel rooms that are in our community today and realized that we have the capacity to really deliver this. They mentioned number 3, a standalone tournament ice facility. Now, it's a couple of things about this. The team at Victus realized that there was more than enough demand in the Mid-Atlantic for a tournament ice facility. A couple of things we have to know, though. A main arena with at least 1,000 seats, if not larger, and also at least 2 sheets of ice. Now, let's talk about what that is. For our facility here, it would have to be at least 4 because there are 3 sheets of ice already existing in the market that are performing. And so if those 2 sheets were to continue, we would not induce any, our research suggests that we would not induce any more activity than we have in the present that is already in the market. For this to be a net gain, really 4 sheets with a call it a championship rink that could basically host the final teams in these tournaments, and then also a professional operator that the city would have to hire would be required to execute this vision. That's going to be real important in a moment when we talk about the costs associated with the room nights that this can generate. 4, a 50-meter pool at the YMCA. So swimming is huge in Virginia Beach. The YMCA has a great offering in the present. In the event that the city were willing to expand that offering, bring it under roof, make it truly a year-round offering, it's believed that there would be real value to that. Again, important to know if we dive into this. The cost associated with facilities like this, at our last estimate, was of a pool like this for maintenance was about $1 million a year. So again, important to know, should we choose to go there and this were to be a city facility, then there's some cost associated with the use. It's important to note here, you have a private operator that's currently doing this and has some plans of their own. But an expansion of swimming did score in the top 5. The Hampton Roads Soccer Complex, our existing facility, basically, and as you all will know, there was a submission for capital improvement asking for roughly $16 million on city-owned land. This is currently a facility that has been in partnership with Park and Recreation, but the study does realize that there is some investment that could lead to better tourism activity if that were the choice of council. And then the Princeton Athletic Complex, that the addition of some artificial turf and lights with various improvements could also result in increased revenue. So let's talk about now, and I know that some of that writing is small, but just to show how many room nights are associated with each of sort of what each of these uses. So action sports, we estimate, could generate and should generate an additional 35,000 room nights per year. So that's a considerable increase. And if you look at the cost of basically construction spend per room night of about $1,100, that the ROI versus the number of room nights associated with the activity put them first. A tournament ice facility. So again, here, this is based on, that $1,200 number is based on 2 sheets. If we go to 4 sheets, we should expect a considerable increase in that number. But also it's important to note, there would be the cost of hiring an operator on top of it. I'd be remiss if I did not mention at this point, we know that there are private sector operators that are interested in delivering this program in the city today. And should you all tell us to move forward with that, it would be our recommendation to explore those before considering the construction cost associated with this facility. We don't at all challenge the 33,000 room nights. In fact, if anything, we think it could be more. However, and that's because this is primarily a winter activity, and so we know that this comes at a time of year when we have capacity. However, to build the facility that would have the impact, we do think it's worth talking to private sector providers in the market, should you all choose to do that, before the city looked at it. A tournament baseball complex, again, so when you see the 20,000 room nights, don't be scared off by that. That's because it's a summer activity. And so what we know here about baseball that's exciting is we have a number of travel teams in Virginia Beach today that not all of whom have adequate practice facilities, where a tournament baseball facility would absolutely be used all summer for tournaments, for baseball teams to come and play. There's a community use aspect to baseball as well that would also allow for training and use during the summer months. If you look at most of our travel teams, they train at least 10 months of the year, and most train year-round now. And so I'm looking at Mark, who's nodding his head, because I have a son that has just aged out of this. Mark has a son that's still doing it. But yes, if you're playing travel baseball, you're basically playing baseball year-round. This is a facility that would also serve the community. For that reason, we believe it scored well. The last thing I want to mention, so when you see the soccer complex and the Princess Anne Athletic Complex, you see very low numbers of additional nights. It's important to note, let's talk about why that is. Victus subtracted all of the room nights that are currently being generated by those facilities. And it's also important to note that those are existing facilities in which we've already made considerable investments. I do believe that this is personal opinion, and I'm not in any way arguing with what Victus came up with, but in my understanding of the market as the person that you have asked to sort of lead sports tourism through my portfolio in this community, I believe that both of those numbers are low. I think that if there's one thing that we have seen, it's optimization and investment in our existing facilities have generated returns for us year over year every time we've done it. I absolutely believe that that's true of the Princess Anne Athletic Complex and the soccer complex. And I'm glad to see that some of our tourism stakeholders that are in the room are nodding their heads at me for saying that. I mean, and so it's important, and I do think it would be important to have a conversation, at least if it was your will, to understand fully what optimization of existing facilities look like before we made considerable capital contribution to new facilities, because because we've already made the investment and we've already put the energy into creating those facilities. And so where on this list, two of our legacy facilities perhaps did not score as highly as some of the new opportunities, it's important to note those are legacy commitments that are already delivering for the community every day. I mean, we're coming right up on sand soccer, which is one of the biggest events of our tourism year. And so I'll stop with that and just say, thank you for letting us give you an update on this study. Obviously, we'll now make the full study available to the public so that people could review it. We just wanted to get it to you all first. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions.
Hey, Michael.
Yes, sir.
Let me just really start by just referring to what you talked about Jackalope. I had the privilege to attend Jackalope, as I know many other people did this weekend, and it was outstanding.
Thank you, Council Member.
I really appreciate your vision as well as your expertise to not only bring Jackalope to Virginia Beach, but also make them very welcome and successful while they're here. And from all evidence that I was able to observe, that's exactly what happened. It was just an amazing and really wonderful opportunity, and I think it relates perfectly to the action sports, and you summarized it well. I just want to make sure I'm drawing that out.
Yes, sir.
For the body and for the public. Action sports is authentic to Virginia Beach.
Yes, sir.
Surf, skate, BMX, as you know, is becoming
Yes, sir.
mine. This is in our DNA. I grew up here. We went to one of the best days was going to the surf shop to get whatever you wanted or get some new clothes, and or action sports related items. And so it just is part of who we are. So we shouldn't try to be something we're not.
Yes, sir.
And we should invest in what we are and enhance it. I think that's what you've been doing. And that's what the tourism team here has been doing. And I think we just need to continue to do it. So my question is specifically, there's two sort of tracks here. And I'm just wondering if you could unpack the tourism track a little bit more. One is that we want to, like, as you know, with BMX, make opportunities available for citizens to enjoy recreation.
Yes, sir.
So that could be a neighborhood BMX track, it could be a neighborhood skate park, and that brings people into the pipeline. But how do you differentiate that between the major sports tourism opportunities, and what do the major sports tourism opportunities look like, and how could they be integrated for accessibility for the community, Virginia Beach residents as well?
Yes, sir. Thank you for that question. And because that really is important. And I also want to thank you for the kind words about Jackalope. And at this point, I want to acknowledge the team at the Convention and Visitors Bureau that's led by Nancy Hellman. Jackalope started as an idea and a conversation that Nancy and I had 2 years ago. Fast forward to today, and we delivered it. And I'm so proud and grateful for the work that team put into the event. And so thank you for that. Now to your question specifically about community use of these facilities. I believe our sports center gives us a great example of what that can be. So when we built the sports center, the idea was we would use it for tournament activities during the season, so through the summer, and that we would use it on the weekends during the off season, but that the rest of the time it would belong to the community. And that's something we don't talk about enough. So the revenue model at the sports center is built to suggest that our operator owns the calendar from Monday to Thursday, basically year round. And during those times, we've encouraged him to build leagues, have birthday parties, make that facility available to the public to use. And then on the weekends, we sell it for tourism activity. Now, that model works everywhere. So, and you mentioned BMX. So BMX is a great example, or some of the skate investments that we've made in like Woodstock Park and over at Betty F. Williams. I mean, so those are facilities that are right for our competitive use, which you're going to see in just a moment. But what's great about those is once they're built, we don't have to have someone there, sort of standing guard over a BMX facility. It can belong to the public. People can ride at their leisure. As we see in our parks today at Woodstock, I mean, that skate park is available to the public, and it's an amenity that our residents can use whenever they want. Same is true if you were to, on a nice day this summer, if you were to go to Mount Trashmore, you'll see young people on the ramp there, and just people taking turns, and it's a great culture building experience to sort of see sort of older skaters, show the younger folks what to do without any sort of structure around it. And so that's what we would encourage the community to look at. And just like with baseball, we know that during the summers, it'd be utilized every week for tournament activity. But during the fall and the winter, it'll belong to the community. What we're working with on the soccer complex right now is there's already vast community use of the Hampton Roads Soccer Complex. And so the conversation there is what weeks and what weekends can we work with their schedule that work with our schedule for tournaments so that we can enhance the tourism opportunity. So I think it's really just a long way to answer your question. It's just about understanding the calendar and ensuring that it's sort of inherent in our and sort of expressed in our intent to make these community assets as well as revenue generating assets.
Thank you. And Mayor, if I could, just as a follow-up point, I think that's really important. What you just said is expressed in our intent.
Yes, sir.
One of the, I think, points of tension that sometimes we have in these chambers is around, kind of the investment in the oceanfront, investment in tourism, and the tension that exists with community needs. But I think what we don't do a very good job of is highlight how accessible these amenities are for citizens and how valuable they are for quality of life and for the family life in Virginia Beach. And it's a story I think we need to tell better moving forward.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, Barbara?
Well, the sports tourism is certainly nothing new.
No, ma'am.
We've been working on this for 20 or 30 years.
Yes, ma'am.
And Princess Anne Commons was the area that was designated right at the very beginning from it, and I don't see our parks and recreation people, but I know all the athletic fields and everything there are very much a part of it and are planned for much more. Just a few years ago, we were very close to having some baseball in there, but that didn't happen. So we do know that baseball is something that we need to work on in those fields, and that's the thing that, in the ITA plan, because this is all in the ITA, the recreation is a major part of it, and it's a major part of economic development too. And so we have a lot there developed, but we also have a lot more to develop in this aspect. And so I think it's very, very good and very timely that, we're recognizing that and recognizing it for the value that it is. Of course, the field house was built, and I guess that's pretty much the local, but it's also is that also used for tournaments?
It's really more local use these days. There really aren't enough basketball courts there to really drive big tournament activity. However, outside of basketball, there are sports there that offer tournament activity. So yes, ma'am, we utilize it with some of the really, and it's important to know that the field house is operated by the same team that operates our sports center. So yes, ma'am, there is collaboration between the two in the tournament space.
It certainly should be. But as far as the swimming, that we went through quite an ordeal with that. I believe it was city property that we gave to the Y.
Yes, ma'am.
And they were to build a covered pool. It was to be a Olympic-sized pool, and it was to be covered. But I think once they got doing their practicing, they decided they liked it better uncovered. But the intent with that original deal was that it was going to be covered. So is that no longer a possibility?
So I think it's if we were to talk about the Y facility as it exists today, I think it is important to note that it's performing, it's doing everything that they had hoped it would do, but it's not optimized. And so when that pool was built, just swimming lanes were enough. If you fast forward to compete for the type of tournaments that we would want to induce today, you need practice lanes, you need warm up, cool down facilities. There's a much broader need than we have in just the pool in the present. And it is important to note that it is not a covered pool today. I can't speak to why it wasn't covered, other than just to say it's swimming is a very expensive business to be in. Also, when you look at you are limited by the number of lanes you have when it comes to the number of people you can have in the pool at the same time. So if you've got 12 lanes, you can't have more than 12 people swimming at a time in most cases. And so it's important to note that where that facility is absolutely performing, to be competitive in the present, there would be additional investment that's needed to induce. Now, we're not talking about community use, talking about inducing the type of tournaments that would move the needle on tourism.
Well, I think we're on the right track, and we've got a lot to do because it does do the dual purpose of providing the opportunities for our citizens.
Yes, ma'am.
As well as being a major tourist draw. And so, like I say, this has been on the radar for a number of years, and I think we need to kind of just inventory what we do have. Of course, the soccer complex has been there forever, and but these things tended to a lot of the time start with a nonprofit. I mean, it's soccer and swimming and so forth. And so, if we are going to now become more of a city operated, then we'll need to kind of go back and see where we stand with those original agreements.
So would be important to note, our recommendation would be that should you all choose to move forward with enhancements to swimming, that we continue to work with the YMCA and the present operators, because it's just not something that our team in sports tourism has the expertise to do. But we do like swimming. It's really important to note. That is also something that is very authentically us. I mean, I'm looking at Susan from CVB, whose daughter is swimming at Virginia Tech right now. Marjorie Smith in Mark's office, her daughter is a Division I NCAA swimmer. I mean, the swimming culture in Virginia Beach, and I mean, it helps. We're a community surrounded by water. You better be able to swim here. And so what I will tell you is, competitive swimming is really also a very authentic part of who our community is. So we like this use a lot as well.
Anyone else? Worth.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Adams. And first, let me say a couple things. First, lead off with Jackalope, and I think I can't speak for everyone. The energy, the excitement around the oceanfront this past weekend, even though it was not 90 degrees, it was almost another northeaster. I think it exceeded expectations. I was there several days. Everyone was very excited. All different folks from all around attended. So thank you for that effort,
Yes.
and applaud the City Council for bringing that, and you all for bringing that to us. So I keep hearing the word authenticity, authentic, and that's what I brought from the Charleston trip. I think you did as well, Mr.
Yes.
Adams. And what is authentic about Virginia Beach is no question that it's sports in general, given our location, given our geography, given our culture. While I don't want to lose sight of the fact that there's so many sports to be promoted, we've got a great culture in volleyball, field hockey, soccer, baseball, football, basketball. I'm a lifelong tennis player. We got pickleball. We got so many things. So we don't want to be too much to too many people at the same time. Action sports is also. So So I asked you two questions. Number one, where are we going to get the money? And number two, where are the locations?
Oh, that's a good question. And so I don't want to get ahead of the next briefing on location because you're about to see a lot of them that already exist. And this is one of the reason I believe that Victus scored action sports so highly is because it is the low-hanging fruit, because we do already have community assets that exist. And I mean, the great thing about surfing is we have the Atlantic Ocean. And so I mean, as it relates to so many of the activities in this space, we already have the facilities within the community to deliver them. That said, if you were to look at construction of an action sports facility, I do believe that proximity to your convention center and your sports center would be something that should be considered and would be very important. But also, as it gets into other uses, I mean, Ms. Henley mentioned the Princeton Athletic Complex. We know that, and I see Chuck Thornton is here with us today. But you know, when I think about the stadium that he operates for us, I mean, and the land around it, I mean, certainly there is an appetite to deliver cross country, BMX in that area, but also many of the other sports that you just mentioned, field hockey specifically in that area would be something that works very well. So for us, I don't want to get too far ahead because one of the things that you all might tell us to do next would be to go answer that location question about where things should go. I mean, because right now I'm speaking off the top of my head, just standing here in front of you. But the truth is, this is traditionally something that we would, if you all accepted what was in Victus, that is where we would then work with a land planner to fully understand the best place to put these. Because the important thing about it's not just the facility in sports tourism; it's also how do we get people to it, where do we park them, it's all of the other uses that are and all of the activities that are required to successfully deliver the function that are needed. How far is it from our hotel rooms? All of those things. So we would want to put a little study behind that if we could.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Patrick, and then
a question around financing. I think noting the fiscal year 23-24 budget and also in the previous budget, City Council appropriated some funds for sports tourism, around 19.5 million. I think 1.92 million of it is actually appropriated to date, and another 17 million or so is programmed out in the out years, I think, to start in fiscal year 25. So that could be some seed money for some of these initiatives. And the goal is, as Mr. Taylor mentioned, is to evaluate this, bring it out to the public, and then to bring back future discussions on this for council to consider further.
Amelia?
Yes, I want to thank you for the presentation. Also thank Nancy, because I remember mentioning at AAC that young people out at Williams Farm and so forth did not know, and she made that effort. A lot of them came out, they're all excited about seeing the jackalope. That's important. The other thing I wanted to mention, and Councilman Worth Remick did mention about, location, especially where you have now to do with the BMX. Of course, because we have in the area, wherever they find spare land, you see all this group come out there with these big old
Yes, ma'am.
raised down Northampton, raised down, off in the golf course area. And so there is a need. People love doing this. You see, there's a big group, including women.
Oh, yes, ma'am.
They're on these BMX and headed out. So that is something that we need to look at that is accessible throughout the city.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Okay, Josh, and then Chris.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much, and thank you, Taylor, for the presentation. A couple of things, just looking at the report, I noticed that there were some areas where I think we can do some existing improvement in terms of how our community stakeholders, community partners interact with the sporting events that come into our community. So I really do hope that this report is kind of even if it is something that we take and to the next level, some additional analysis, that we
Yes.
take some of those recommendations and find ways to better connect the resources that we have here to the people who come visit us for these sporting events.
Yes.
I also, just following up on Councilmember Lucci's point, I think it's great to look at some of the new things that could come and some of the new opportunities that we have. But I really do believe that, wherever possible, we should look for some of those low-hanging fruit, some of those, the existing facilities, like the Hampton Roads Soccer Complex, for example, where, they're just looking for some additional parking. And I know that there was a relatively kind of easier solution to share some parking with the amphitheater space. So,
Yes, sir.
so trying to look for some of those opportunities that benefit both tourism and the community as a whole. Especially considering I know that Hampton Roads Soccer Complex has never actually made an ask for money for us. And I think given the information in this report, there's overwhelming interest in this community around soccer in general. So I wanted to give that nod for sure. But also it just as it relates to a pool specifically, and some of these other facilities, and I'm sure this will be the case, but evaluating some of the other competitor facilities like the Aquaplex, for example, in Hampton, whether having an indoor pool here would really, make a bigger difference. Would it draw away from that in Hampton, what the demand is? So I'm absolutely all in favor for digging into this, looking into locations and opportunities going forward, but also with those kinds of things in mind that we got to be mindful of the dual benefit situation. So
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Rocky.
Mr. Mayor, thank you. Taylor, thank you. Exciting time, especially for sports. Former athlete, Jackalope was incredible. Grew up BMXing, so really cool there. As I reviewed the study, kind of one word popped into my mind, and that's kind of hopefully prioritizing as a body and as staff, because Josh brought up, Councilman Schulman, the 64,000 square foot Hampton Aquatic Center, and they have the CAA men's, women's swimming book diving championship, high school VHSL class 5-6 swimming diving championship. So just prioritizing where we're going to look at. And then within the study, it also mentioned the participation rates, and Michael mentioned the culture here. I went to First Colonial. We don't have any basketball state championships, but we have a lot of soccer, volleyball, field hockey at Cox. And so looking at the participation rates and maybe hopefully measuring, where those trends are. You see baseball, 5.6 million, tennis, 3.3, 4 million. And we drove past that center this past weekend, going to Jackalope, grass growing out of the courts. They've kind of communicated some needs there. And then Patrick, you had mentioned the tip with the sports tourism fund. Didn't we appropriate some of those monies to Atlantic Park?
Councilmember Taylor, yes, council in this budget and reconciliation appropriated some to close out some needs for the Atlantic Park project, but also earmarked in fiscal year 25 the remaining money to go into the sports tourism spot. That was also authorized as well.
Okay. And then in speaking to some of the participants, and correct me if I'm wrong, we have a 3-year commitment for Jackalope?
So
Where's that?
as most of our contracts are, we have there. It's an annual agreement, but there are 2 potential renewals at your leisure that come in subsequent years. But yes, sir, it is our hope that the council would allow us to continue with that activity.
So if we were to do something like that, that does address some of this if we continue investing in that type of
yes, sir.
event. Thank you. And then the last piece was, I think it's very important, especially as we're talking about tourism and sports, with baseball being the largest here in terms of participants. It was interesting on page, I think it was looking at how do markets attract and retain sports tourism. That was page 58.
Yes, sir.
The main reason was quality of sports facilities was 73%. So that's going to be significant as we have this discussion. And nearby hotel lodging, nearby restaurant dining, nearby family entertainment, i.e. we could say tourism, 2% for nearby restaurant, 2% for nearby hotel lodging, 6% nearby family entertainment. So I just want to make sure as we're having this discussion, we're weighing the actual data, the statistics, so we make some of the right decisions.
Yes, sir.
So thank you, Taylor, for everything you've done.
Thank you, Councilman. And I will I think 3 of our local schools are still in the baseball play. 3 of our local high schools are still in the playoffs in baseball right now. I'll speak for the Cox Falcons because that's where my son's at. But nonetheless, but yes, sir, I think we have 3 schools that are still, and I think we'll have a state champion named this weekend or in the coming weeks. So let's go Beach.
Couple spots.
Oh, and Taylor, and the Lynn Haven Blues that we acknowledged earlier this year just won their 4th city championship.
That's right. Yes,
So
sir.
baseball is a big deal around here.
Yes, sir, it is.
Hey, Rocky.
State finals in 10 minutes.
Mr. Mayor, I gotta say it, but I hope while we're looking for locations, we look to District 1 for some of this.
Where is District 1 located?
Let me tell you something about the stable of athletes we have in District 1. We will outswim you in the Elizabeth River. We'll play you on the sandlot. We got a stable of athletes in District 1 that can compete. So I do hope that we spread this throughout the city as we look for these places, because we have the Kempsville Pony Fields and they get a lot of use throughout the year. And that is an opportunity. But I certainly hope we get to take it all throughout the city. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you,
Anyone
Councilmember.
else? Okay, if I can say this, once again, kudos to the Jackalope for the first time. And Deepak from Coastal Edge is here, with George Alcaraz and Micah from Montreal. I'll tell you what, there was such a feeling of positivity and seeing families and kids and everything, and people just coming to our beach, their beach, and really enjoying themselves. And it's hoped that it's not only just a 3-year commitment, but this may also be a legacy commitment that we have here, and maybe even do it a couple times a year. Because once again, it just, puts us on the map as being that type of an activity driven thing. And I think, once again, there's a lot of concern that we want to make sure that a lot of these activities are spread throughout the city. And I think the next, presentation will help with that. But I'll tell you what, Michael, and I think Josh, a couple of weeks ago, right in the middle of a dense neighborhood off Norfolk Avenue, there was a bunch of trees there, acres and acres, with a 5-mile trail for BMX and other walking activities and everything. But once again, I think it's really important that, but also the Princess Anne complex, it was in the former Princess Anne district, but it was also in Apex, where the Centerville district came together and the old Rose Hall district came together, and it's right in the middle of things. And a number of years ago, it was a loss leader. I think it was bleeding about $400,000 a year. But, we got management in there and, took care of some things, and it's proven successful. But once again, as, the infrastructure ages, and, like even in the field house out there, I was in an event a couple months ago. On one side, they had wrestling mats, and they had about 300 wrestlers, young boys and girls, in the tournament right there, sponsored by the Marine Corps, if you don't mind me saying, Rocky. And then on the other side, they had indoor soccer. And, around there, we got the fields and things. And then once again, I think we have to rededicate, the resources to, a booming soccer industry that's out there that is, going to be really important in the future. But I think the important thing is that we had the vision a couple of years ago. We got a couple of hotels going to be going up there, right on TCC property.
Yes, sir.
And I think that can only accentuate, what's doing. But once again, I think there's always a clarion cry to get a professional sports team in here. But once again, we found out that, that comes with a very high, and I'm sure with the experience in Cincinnati, that comes with a lot of overhead, a lot of strings and commitment. But when you think about, maybe packing like I used to go to Giant Stadium, 77,000 people once a week. But if you have this all year round with various, even at the convention center, cheerleader tournaments and, things of that nature, that people that come here year round, and I think that's the important thing that we need in our economy. So, but once again, I think that this is going to be, very part, and I think that, my sense of counsel in the comments, this is part of the DNA of our city. It's like, Mrs. Henley said, we've been doing this for years. But the thing is, if we can make something good even better, I think it really behooves us. And yet, yes, of course, I do agree that there's going to be some priorities here. Maybe a pool is not in our, the thing right now. They're expensive to build, they're expensive to operate, and, they're not used all the time. But the thing is, as we look for kids, as we're doing things like in Bayside with Parks After Dark and coming up with all these unique programs, if you want to really help build a stronger community, give our youth the opportunity to go out and play and learn to win, learn to lose, learn to be teammates, things of that nature. I think it's very important as far as our community building. So with that, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor. All right, using a sports reference, if we're playing golf, it's still me, Mayor.
Yeah.
And so thank you, thank you all for the all of your comments about Jackalope, and as always the case with the guidance you give us on the items we bring forward. And so with Jackalope in mind, the next thing we have for you is a potential action sports series. And there's a couple of things that went into the thought behind this. We heard coming out of your retreat this year, we heard that in our new district system, that you all were looking for us to create tourism opportunity throughout the city in as many districts as we possibly could. And so we started a thought exercise looking at the infrastructure that we already had to see what we could put together. And what you have here today is what we've come up with. This is a new action sports series focused on skate and surf. As you can see, the proposed activity would have 17 action sport events. 12 of those would be skate focused. 5 would be surf focused, and we would ask that you allow us to appropriate $125,000 out of the TIP fund to support this activity. But what this would do is this would create our first citywide activity, and so you can see. We would engage districts 5 and 6 at the ocean front. Obviously, surfing in our community has to happen in districts 5 and 6. We have a pier and we have a jetty, but nonetheless, surfing has to happen where we have the waves to surf. But then beyond that, Mount Trashmore, the Williams Farm Skate Park, Woodstock Skate Park, and the Lynn Haven Mall, and we'll continue. And we're also working to see if there's an opportunity to do something, in or around Red Mill as well. And so the idea is to take the skate element, and instead of running all of the skate at the resort, to spread these skate events throughout the city where we either have existing infrastructure or we can easily sort of construct temporary infrastructure that we can use to deliver the event and then take it down and move on. And so I've got a video. Is it on the... We're having some technology issues. We'll roll on past the video, but the video was just a summary for you and for the public of some of the images that we captured. We got it. It's captured. I'm going to keep talking while it renders, but this is from Jackalope specifically. But oh, there we go. So credit, I want to take a moment and thank D990, whose team at Coastal Edge put that video together and shared it with us. But what you could see is the energy that Action Sports created, and to have it on our beach, on our sand, was something that was really exciting for all of us. For those of us that had to deliver the event, it was a little scary. We didn't know what to do when they said that people were going to jump off the Hilton. Normally, that's not a good thing in our business. But it was actually it was a pretty cool thing. But also, you can see, and what's great is all of those. So the crowd events at Jackalope were evening events, and so we had between 8,000 and 10,000 each evening, despite the weather in the first year that we ran this event. And so those were daytime events, where we were basically for warm ups, preliminary heats, things of that nature. One thing I do want to say about Jackalope that was really exciting: you all made a considerable investment to that event, and because of that, the team at Jackalope elected to do something that we've not seen before, and they made it free to the public. And so that is something that I don't want to miss in this moment. That for the first time we had an event operator take the city's investment that you all made to ensure the event happened, and then they used that, put it into their event, realized they could deliver the event without charging. And so it was not a ticketed event. They didn't charge the public. Everybody in Virginia Beach got to come and participate and engage in the event, and all of our guests that came and stayed in our hotels, ate in our restaurants, got to come and enjoy the event for free and didn't have to pledge that money to the event to participate. So it was a really exciting sort of step forward for our team, and we hope that's something that's continued. To this series, as you can see, here are the proposed dates. We would spread this throughout the city. We would use our existing infrastructure, and we would start the activity of spreading tourism throughout the districts. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions, and we would ask for your ability to bring that back for a vote.
Yep. What do you think, folks? Any questions, Amelia?
Well, I think we should bring it back. And on Monday, I was near that area, and there was a crowd looking at them dismantling. So they were still excited about it.
Yes, ma'am.
That was a series of events that you'll never catch the mayor doing. That dog ain't gonna hunt. No.
So,
No, but Michael, did you jump out of a perfectly good airplane over the weekend too?
Weather prevented me from doing so. I was very disappointed.
Well, we'll look forward to next Jackalope. You're going off the Hilton, okay?
Not the Hilton. I'd rather jump out of a plane than off the Hilton.
Worth?
Yes, the parachute works most of the time. So I would like to shout out two other events that also occurred at the oceanfront this weekend. The resort at 2nd Street, the Wounded Warriors Surf Camp, was a one-day event, beautiful day and event for our veterans, also put on by local folks. And then the USO was active on 24th Street. I believe that was a 3-day event as well. So the resort hosted 3 events this past weekend.
But I'll tell you what, I just hope, I think the fact that we're willing to expand this to every district, and if anybody hasn't seen that skate park and BMX park at Woodstock Park, that was a combined project. What was it, SIPSA?
yes, sir.
Yeah.
HRSD, Mayor, but yes, sir.
It was $52 million, 52 million gallon retention pond that they built a world-class state park as part of a joint venture. And I tell you what, if you want to see a bunch of folks there having a good time, right on Providence Road, right near the Rion, Kempsville Pony football thing.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
I just wanted to point that out, Roger. Okay. But I'm just saying, this is how you spread the wealth and get people involved all over the city. And, then once again, like I said, even combined with the Parks After Dark, and if we can really create this interest and, going forward in all the districts, especially District 1. Yeah, Josh.
Assuming this is successful, which I'm sure it will be, I'm sure next year we'll be looking at districts 2, 7, 8, 9, and 10.
Loud and
well.
clear, yes, sir.
All right, good deal.
Okay, great, Chris.
Thanks for the presentation too. So I just wanted to get some clarity. Is this proposal, which seems pretty reasonable at $7,300 an event for so many events and such an impact? I did keep hearing the term tourism, but this seems like it would be more focused like towards the local culture. I mean, do we anticipate D and others? Do we anticipate people coming from out of town to?
We do.
Okay.
And particularly for the surf aspect, but yes, for the skate as well. And this is sort of a next evolution for us. Councilmember Belushi asked a great question about community use, and certainly community use of our facilities is important. Sort of a next step for us in tourism is creating opportunities for our community athletes to compete against world-class athletes from other parts of the country and around the world. I mean, for example, you saw the aerial motorcycle, the ramp activity. So for example, Virginia Beach actually has a pro now, and that pro was able to compete this week in his home on his beach, which was an incredibly powerful moment for us. At ECSC last year, we brought Ava Max home. So Ava Max is a pop star that grew up in Chesapeake, was discovered at the Greenbrier Mall, is now multi-platinum artist. We had an opportunity to bring her home. We brought her home. So a big part of what we're trying to do now is create those opportunities for our citizens to compete and excel and grow. And so yes, sir, we do think that we'll draw competitors from outside the region to compete in each of these events, and in so doing, create an opportunity for our community to be there as well. We like it a lot.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, social interaction among all groups from outside is really good too. Yeah.
And another thing you should mention is the youth and family retention in Virginia Beach.
Yes, ma'am.
Because as they do this, they bring their families with them, and we can keep some of our youth through this.
Oh, yes. And we actually have people, we have a family, a 10-year-old boy that wants to be a pro surfer. His family moved from West Virginia to Virginia Beach about 6 months ago, just so that he could be part of the culture here to grow up and compete. So we do know that this is us, and it's a draw for us.
Okay. Anyone else at this point? Sabrina.
I wanted to, is just sitting here talking about sports. I received a follow-up email, and many of you remember the gentleman who came out to promote the tackle football program that they have that's in Great Neck. And they reached out to me, and I just think that and all that we're discussing and the facilities that we do have available, and as we improve those facilities, of course, the group is appreciative of the $25,000 that council granted them in the budget, but they are looking for a place to have their games. They start up in August. They reached out to me just to make sure they would have the access to the fields at Princess Anne Athletic Complex. And so just want to make sure we consider them and how we can help them. I don't know if things have changed regarding Parks and Rec and staffing to help with that, but just to let the body know that they are still trying to find a suitable place for the children to practice. The practice starts in August. And so just want to make sure we consider them and to consider their needs in terms of facility use. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, Mayor, with your permission, we'd like to bring this series back for a vote at your next meeting, if that's okay.
Okay. Anybody object? Okay. Bring it forward.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Taylor. Okay, at this point, any council liaison reports? Michael.
But I just wanted to take a moment to introduce Laura and Cameron, the students at Tallwood High School who are job shadowing us today. And just wanted to welcome them and also introduce them to the body and to the public. So welcome.
And welcome. The future is here. Thank you. Anyone else at this point? Sabrina.
Real briefly, Friday last week, had an opportunity to go out, spent about 3 hours in the woods and some of the homeless encampments, walking with the staff and working with the staff. I'm sure many of you have seen emails that are coming up about homeless encampments that are near neighborhoods. And so let me just take the time to thank the staff because just spending the time I spent out there, this is something they do every day. And so I work with Pam, Shine, Michael or Mike, also a young lady named Christy, James. And so we were out there looking at the conditions of individuals who experience homelessness in those encampments. And the team was working very effectively to talk with and address each person and their issues, and to see how they could follow up with them. For instance, you have folks who are, one lady we met out there, she was there for, I think it was her second week, simply because her lease wasn't renewed at her apartment complex. And so she didn't have anywhere to go. And so she's in the woods trying to basically survive. And as some of you may know, the encampments are a community there, but of course, this is not the ideal place for people to live. And so, again, as I mentioned previously, we do want to look at ways to help people in emergency situations, as was mentioned with this young lady, where she finds herself no place to go, her lease is not being renewed, family won't take her in. And so those are areas that we need to consider how we address people in that transition mode. And if we don't have beds available in the facility at the HRC, we have to look at ways of providing temporary relief, such as I know one proposal has gone out with one hotel owner who says he will certainly be happy to work with the city to accommodate folks who need this type of assistance. And perhaps we could make sure that funding is available, that program like that is available to assist people in need who are in these homeless encampments, which certainly gets them out of the woods and provides shelter in an emergency situation for them. And so I would like to thank the police as well, because we know that there are certain things that happen in these encampments. It's not safe, and they're out there doing their job as well, making sure that not only they stop folks from trespassing, but also make sure they are connected to city services. Also, really quickly, I noticed that on social media, there's been a string of auto thefts near my district, District 7, and in other parts of the city. And so just recently, there were 3 vehicles that I know of in the district that were stolen. And there's a group that's going around, a group of young folks going around, and they're able to access codes for keyless fobs for cars. And so people are very concerned about this. Certainly the police is on top of it. They're working through it. I just think that these 2 topics, homeless encampments, which I've been seeing on social media and getting email information as well, and concerns, and the auto thefts in the neighborhoods, certainly will bring this up at a meeting that I'm hosting on the 14th, June 14th. We'll talk more about it, give folks some maybe tips on how to prevent auto thefts like that, because part of it is education and awareness. And so at that meeting on the 14th at Brandon Middle School, 6:30, June 14th, we'll talk about those 2 issues. So just wanted to bring that up to the public and to make sure residents know that the city staff, the police, folks are doing their jobs to address these areas of concerns as you have talked about them in social media and brought them to our attention. Thank you.
Thank you. Barbara?
Council liaison reports for the Open Space Committee. They have spent quite a lot of time now trying to identify the criteria that they would use and would recommend that we use for determining which properties should be required for open space. And they hope to be able to finalize all of that at their meeting this month. I know that some of you, like me, have probably been getting questions from people about what properties are we going to acquire and how much money do we have in that kind of thing. So I just wanted to know where you stand, but they hope to have something by their meeting this month on the final criteria.
Okay, Chris and then Worth.
Just as liaison with Jennifer, Housing Advisory, and Dr. Ross Hammond, we did have a successful housing summit. So I want to thank the council for your support. By Mayor, you did participate, Councilwoman Wooten, and then Dr. Million Ross Hammond, you sent legislative aid along with Dr. Schulman, Councilmember Schulman. And so we've, and Patrick, you can join me, but the staff has gotten good reports back. Had about 65 people that came from across developers, realtors, mortgage. And so I think it was a positive step in the right direction. And as I did in my comments at the summit, acknowledged all of you for your support, because everybody has mentioned this is important. And so I think it was a good step right before we receive our new study. And so I just want to say thank you for everyone supporting that collaborative initiative.
And I want to thank you for hosting that, and I thought it was very well. And then Andy Friedman also gave a history and indicated that we have been working along on this. But I think right now that there's a renewed effort that we have to escalate our efforts, going forward. So it was a very, very well done meeting. Thank you. Okay, Worth.
Also, a liaison report on Atlantic Park. As you all know, it closed. The developers have closed. Construction has started. They're into about the second month. I share the duties with Councilman Schulman, with the developer. We have finalized a point of contact with the city. So the city, through various folks, are engaged with the developer to protect, as well as outside agencies to oversee the construction. This is a $335 million project over probably almost 2 years. And so it's really important to get started off on the right foot. That being said, as always, sometimes you don't know what's in the ground. And so they are in the ground now. And some of the dome has been there. Some of the support for the wooden piles are in the ground. And so some of the soil contingency and site work contingencies are being spent. We're not done yet with that contingency, nor are they done with the soil and site work, but that's not great news, but we're on our way. So, and secondly, more sports. This weekend is sand soccer weekend at the oceanfront, 100,000 people. That's now becoming a signature event for the resort. So I just want to remind everyone that's this weekend, starting, I believe, Friday and ending Sunday. Pros, amateurs, locals, come visit. Thank you.
Yeah, and I understand there was a successful site visit at Atlantic Park with a number of people. The manager was there and very well represented by the city. I think oversight is important on this, but also effective communication. And I think that, we pulled this across the finish line after 6 long years, but, I am confident that this is going to bear fruit. And as we talk about the surfing culture, sometimes our waves, even in Virginia Beach, get flat. And the thing is that if we have, I know, but I'm just saying, but now that we have this as a year-round thing, once again, I think it just accentuates, what we were talking about this afternoon. So I thank you all, for, participating and, smoothing out some edges there and moving forward in a positive direction. Yeah, Amelia.
And just one thing, concluding about the transit, the Virginia Transit Association. We had the 2 days and it went very well. We had over 400 come in from all over Canada and so forth. And they really enjoyed not only being here, but the opportunity to ride the trolley and the freebie. So I did bring, and then, they did an election, so now I'm vice president of the Virginia Transit Association, which relates to Virginia Beach, and we'll be having our next meeting in Harrisonburg next year. So I brought a few.
There we go.
I love trolley. To pass on.
That's cute.
Thank you.
Pass them down. I hope not enough. Thank you. Oh, District 1 has to get one.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, anyone else at this point? Oh, yes, Jen.
Not a liaison, sorry, Rocky, but in District 1, Kimsville Ponies this past Sunday had their championship game for the Champions Division. And one of the groups that we recognized a few months ago, a resolution like FACT, and a number of groups came up. Aid Another and Christine Ross was a part of extending sports to people with different abilities. And so it was an opportunity for kids with all sorts of abilities to play a championship game. So kudos to them and to that community effort to make sports available to all sorts of players.
Great. And the other day, I had the pleasure of doing opening remarks for the Letter Carriers Association, a very spirited group of letter carriers throughout the Commonwealth. And I had the pleasure of being there with Senator Aaron Rouse, who also attended. Okay, any other discussions? Rocky, what's up in District 1 these days?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of council. And one thing I want to touch on real quick is I want to thank the families of the May 31st victims for allowing us to mourn with them and celebrate the lives of their loved ones last week. It was a very good ceremony. And when we heard the testimony from Sergeant Ricardo that came up there, it was so moving, and it put a real understanding on what happened that day. And I want to thank those families for allowing us to be there and mourn with them and celebrate the life of their loved ones. So thank them very much. Now, on the next thing is we got to stand up this urban agricultural committee. Now, I have a couple suggestions for it. It was dropped on my lap when I came here, and I didn't see the testimony, or I don't know the testimony of everything that went on with it. But it's my opinion that we have 6 new members here that have never heard testimony about this urban agriculture. So I've heard from my colleagues that were here that it was a very intense testimony from the public for and against having backyard chickens, having livestock in the neighborhoods. It's my recommendation that we start all over again and get a resolution and hear from the public on where we stand with this. And that's just my recommendation. I don't know it's the will of the body, but I certainly think with 6 new members here that have never heard testimony about chickens and ducks and pigs and things like that, E-I-E-I-O, we certainly need to hear that testimony so we can make an informed decision.
Worth it just to have at least initially a public hearing?
I think that'd be fine.
Coming forward with a resolution and hear it first and have a council discussion.
I think Rocky is right. It's been just sort of lingering out there. Every 2 weeks, are we going to appoint anybody? We need to decide if we're going to do it or if we're not. And if we just have a public hearing, that's not going to create a decision. I think we need a path to decision and either go with it or not.
Yeah, but I think, if we do have a public hearing, we're going to give the opportunity for both sides to present their, cases. And then, everybody will be up to speed, then we can do it. Patrick?
Mr. Mayor, just to get clarity, I'm hearing that we should probably do a resolution that council could have on the agenda and have public comment based on that, and then council determine.
Or maybe just a public hearing first and then determine the way to go. Is that a more prudent path, Josh?
Mr. Mayor, I would just inject that we have a lot of different things on our plate right now. And if we're going to undertake something like this, I think we've got to kind of clear the slate first. This is not something that, although, I don't want to discount this by any means, because I know there's a lot of people that do feel passionate about it, but we are the largest city in the Commonwealth, and we've got to get some business done first before we start talking about outdoor animals.
Okay, yeah, Chris?
I just got my first email from District 8 for exotic ducks, pet ducks. And it was a 30-minute conversation on the phone. And she was really serious about these ducks. Her neighbor called on the ducks, and there was kind of a lack of clarity in the code for ducks. And so I don't want to kick the can because I'm going to have to be accountable to this constituent, but at the same time, you know, it hasn't come before us, and I explained to her where we were, and that I didn't want to tell her to do something illegal to keep her ducks. And in Kings Grant, we have lots of ponds. We have a duck pond, and this has never been an issue. But it has come to 8 now, and we do owe these individuals a response. I don't know if it's the highest priority. So I'm supportive of at least having a discussion.
October?
Yeah, but you know, Josh, I agree, but once again, you know, I think there's only so far we can kick the can. You know, but once again, it would be.
sorry.
Let me just, yeah, go ahead.
Mayor, I don't agree with the path it appears that we are taking in for the following reason. We need to hear from our staff, from the experts. Yes, we need to make sure that the public are heard. And as far as urban agriculture, we have been stalled. I think Councilmember Schulman's point is well made. But here's what I do object to. I object to a public hearing where we only are hearing one side. There are public health considerations here. There is public policy. I would like, before you go to a public hearing, if you do not object, Mayor, that we have a staff briefing on the legal landscape of this in health, public health aspect of this issue.
Yeah, I think that might be a prudent approach that, you know, once again, myself and former Councilman Wood, we were liaisons to the animal control for a while, and this was an omnipresent issue. And, you know, believe it or not, as simple as it may seem on the face, a very divisive issue. So maybe, you know, in order, why don't we have ask for a staff briefing, you know, especially from animal control, and take a look at the big picture. And then from there, based on where we want to go. Is that fair, Rocky?
That's totally fair. I understand that.
Okay, Chris.
And this is just a comment. You know, we've had a lot of conversation around the PPEA and what we're doing there. And Councilman Schulman and I have had some discussions. And if this is going to be a process that we use going forward, I had an opportunity to speak with Dr. Spence and several of the school board members. There is a desire for us to try and collaborate and maybe have a joint meeting. And as liaison to school modernization, Vice Mayor, I don't know if you support maybe getting something on the calendar in the fall where we can come together as the two bodies and see, because if this is the process that we're going to utilize, I think it's better that we all at least are aligned and agree, because it has been not overly contentious, but there are some disagreements. And so they have expressed a desire to meet. They say it hasn't happened often. I'm a freshman, but I didn't know if there was support for that type of joint meeting at some point in the fall.
Rosemary.
Well, this is the first time we've had PPA, so it's not like, we're all freshmen when it comes to this, Chris, so don't feel alone. I know that they're having all of these meetings. I'm with the Bayside, and so Bayside Junior, 6th, and then Princess Anne. Let's see if we can look at the schedule and find out what the best timing is with all those meetings that are already occurring, and so that we'll have a better feel from where it's headed.
And I was saying fall later.
Yeah,
in the
right,
year.
and right, we should collaborate and find out when the best time is. But no, I think in an update, because there's a lot of intense time being put into all of this, which is a good thing. So maybe we can get when the best time is for that.
Yeah, Patrick.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, as you know, in the fall, there is a joint meeting between the council and the school board around the 5-year forecast.
Yep.
Would you like for this to be a possible agenda item that we cover?
Yeah, I think that would be a perfect solution. Yes.
Because we also probably need to have a conversation, which we hope to kick off in July, about the school funding formula. As you know, that agreement expires next year. So we're looking for some guidance from council and ultimately the school board as to how you all would like to move forward. Do we want to renew and debate and discuss further, or do you want to give us any direction on possible ways of approaching that? And we hope to brief you in July on that.
And I think, thank you, Patrick. And I think waiting, as we all know, Dr. Spence resigned, and, they're going to be, obviously in a search for a while. And I think if we do defer to fall, as, Chris Taylor said, they should have somebody new on board. We don't want to make any decisions without them having a permanent thing. But the other thing is too, that, this may also be the opportunity not only for the 5-year forecast, but to really get a handle going as we get ready to go into the next budget cycle, to find out where the school priorities are, early on and everything. And, the thing is too, that maybe periodic meetings with the school board are there, just, make sure that we're on the same page, going forward, because, I tell you what, there's going to be a tremendous amount of capital needs in the school divisions, going forward with all those Rosemary's intimately over the years aware of, some of the needs going forward. They're going to be pretty astronomical. Okay. Yeah, Patrick.
Just for clarity on what was discussed previously about the urban agriculture. So basically, you would like staff to put together a briefing that we could present to council about some of the operational concerns and
Operational, legal.
legal. Okay.
Yeah, there are some legal ramifications, for instance.
Medical.
Yeah,
Medical.
health reasons and things of that nature. Michael?
Mayor, if you don't mind, Mr. Dehaney, I want to make sure my position is very clear in what I requested. I do not want either a public hearing or the staff presentation to be prejudicial or biased or have a position in either way. What I was looking for with the staff presentation is an objective presentation of the facts as well as of the variety of considerations that we're going to be tasked with processing in the course of this discussion. Just a lay of the land.
Yeah, there are
Legal and health and all involved. And that way we will be armed with the information we need as citizens and advocates approach us on either side. We'll have a baseline and we'll all be on the same page. That was the basis for my request.
No, I concur with
And I
that.
want the community to know that too. Not pro, not against. I just want the facts.
Just the facts. That's the old dragnet.
Dragnet approach.
Yeah,
Yes,
the
sir.
dragnet approach. Okay, anyone? Michael? Oh, I'm sorry.
So I will be happy to work with the manager and try to put that briefing together, but there were multiple, issues that this committee was going to take up. And the reason that the committee was discussed was to allow the committee to consider all of those things and then come back and brief those issues. So are we briefing whether or not the committee is a good idea, or are we looking at specific issues like backyard chickens or potbelly pigs or recycling or ducks, or what are we looking at? Because each one of those may present different health and safety concerns.
That's what we're looking at.
Yeah. Amelia?
This is why Councilman Shulman is mentioning with pending serious business that, not saying it's not serious, but at least we get our priorities in order, that briefing, and then move forward. But at least it will give District 1 a feeling that it is being discussed and heard.
Yeah, but I guess what maybe looking at is a generic thing, because, I remember around animal control, we talked about some laws that are in effect that may, affect what's going on, but once again, okay, Sabrina, did you have your hand up?
I did.
And then Jen.
And I just wanted to certainly concur with what Attorney Stiles mentioned. That's the purpose of the body. That was the task force that was formed to kind of research those issues. And out of the task force, I know we've had a task force on the ICRB. And quite frankly, the task force was a help to helping us develop a solution. And so the task force for, this body, or as an advisory body, can educate or do the research, educate us on the pros and the cons. And then, as often task force do, provide a recommendation, provide a report, and that helps us make a decision of as to what we should do. And so I think the task force can be very helpful in that aspect.
Good point. Jen?
Yeah, I was trying to reiterate, getting clarifying information about, is this what the staff is doing or the task force is doing? Getting these questions, was that the point of the task force to answer the medical health information? So then we need to set up the task force to get that done, or are we asking city staff to do that? I guess to clarify, is that your question?
That was kind of my question, yeah.
Okay, Michael?
Mr. Stiles, respectfully, I don't think it's that complicated from where, maybe I didn't articulate it well. I'm not asking for the deepest policy dive on each of these issues. It's just a lay of the land. This is where we are today. These, an animal control or whoever in the city is tasked could say, these are some of the things that we've considered in this, not stopping short of making a recommendation, stopping short of going into incredible detail around any of these issues or taking a position. The committee's job would be to take a position with that information and make a recommendation to council. What I'm interested in is a broad stroke, as I mentioned, lay of the land, so that we know so that everyone here who's new to this conversation has a sense of what is being contemplated as the committee considers policy changes if we decide to move forward with the committee. Does that help you at all?
I understand the request, sir.
Yeah, and then, based on that, then we can, form the committee and charge them with a specific of what we want the outcome to be. Okay. All right, Josh?
Actually, are you all done? Okay. I just wanted to let the constituents in District 9 know that I have a town hall scheduled for June 28th from 6 to 8 p.m. at Bayside Rec Center. So once again, June 28th from 6 to 8 at Bayside Rec Center.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Okay, Rosemary, consent.
Okay, yes. Hopefully we'll have a lot of things on consent. So under ordinances and resolutions, anybody have any issues or anything? Okay.
It's a
Anybody? Yeah.
deferral
Worth?
for number,
We're not on planning yet.
sorry.
Okay, so moving along to planning.
Ordinance and resolution, discussion on 4.
Yeah, that's been pulled.
Has it been pulled? Okay.
Yeah, deferred. Number 4.
4.
Of the resolutions.
Yes, it's been recommended for denial.
Mr. Remick, I'm sorry, did you just want to recommend on consent for deferral? You don't have to pull it if that's not what you want.
What's the protocol? Do we
You can make a recommendation for deferral.
now or on the dice?
Right.
Now, I'd like to do it now.
Okay.
For number 4 under ordinances?
Yeah.
Okay, so that'll be on consent for deferral.
Okay.
Do we need a time specific?
Indefinite or for a specific time?
Indefinite.
Okay. Okay, on to
Okay, on
planning.
the planning, number 1, it's been asked to defer that until June 20th. And number 2, with Sessoms, District 6.
Consent.
Number 3, the Commonwealth Auto Group, District 9.
I've not heard any objection.
This is really fun. Giggle bug. Number 3, District 3.
Please add it to the consent, happily.
Number 4, Kelly Pepper, District 5. I've heard nothing. Number 6, Nancy Braithwaite, District 6.
Consent. Please, thank you.
Number 7, ordinance to add Article 24 to the city zoning. Number 8, the ordinance to amend city zoning, ordinance CZO, Section 202, regarding flood zone height requirements. Okay, number 9, ordinance to amend the Virginia Beach comprehensive plan regarding the flood resiliency toolkit.
Madam Vice Mayor, just as we do that, I just want to acknowledge one of our city staff people, Hank Morrison in our planning department, who I had the pleasure of working with on before I came onto the council. It was a very good process, and he deserves a lot of credit, especially as he goes into the comprehensive planning process.
Thank you for doing that. So it looks like
Okay,
it is tonight.
we are set. Okay, at this point, the chair will entertain a motion to recess into a closed session pursuant to the exemptions from open meeting allowed by section 2.23711A. Code of Virginia is amended for the following purposes. Publicly held property, discussions or considerations of the acquisition of real property for public purposes or of disposition for publicly held property, where discussion in an open meeting would adversely affect the bargaining position or negotiating strategy of the public body. And that would be District 6, District 4. Legal matters, consultation with legal counsel, briefings or by staff members or consultants pertaining to actual or probable litigation, where such consultation or briefing in an open meeting would adversely affect the negotiating or litigating posture of the public body pursuant to section 2.23711A7, item Adams Outdoor Advertising versus City of Virginia Beach, item Estate of DeShayla Harris versus City of Virginia Beach and John Doe, Estate of Donovan Lynch versus City of Virginia Beach, and item Holloway versus City of Virginia Beach. Personnel matters, discussion, considerations, or interviews of prospective candidates for employment, assignment, appointment, promotion, performance, demotion, salaries, disciplining, or resignation specific public officers, appointees, or employees of the public body pursuant to section 2.23711A1. And that is council appointees, council boards, commissions, committees, authorities, agencies, and appointees. Do I have a motion?
So, second.
Okay.
Councilmember Berluci.
Aye.
Councilmember Henry.
Aye.
Councilmember Holcomb.
Aye.
Councilmember Remick.
Aye.
Councilmember Ross Hammond.
Aye.
Councilmember Rouse.
Aye.
Councilmember Shulman.
Aye.
Councilmember Taylor.
Aye.
Councilmember Wooten.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Wilson.
Aye.
And Mayor Dyer.
Aye.
By a vote of 11-0, you vote to go to closed session.
Okay, let's recess into close and take a short break.